Thank you everyone for listening. I'm going to talk a bit today about nature-based solutions in the built environment. Here are my collaborators who have contributed greatly to this. So we know that cities are places where human activities are concentrated. Our impacts are great within relatively small areas, resulting in adverse environmental impacts, degraded ecosystems, which are less resilient to future change. Well, these places where people live, we need to ensure that they're actually benefiting people to the maximum degree. And this means designing cities in ways that provide benefits, whether those are cultural, supporting, provisioning, or regulating environmental benefits and services to the people that live there. We also know that cities are at the forefront of climate change impacts. So for example, in the UK, we're expected to see warming up to 4.4 degrees Celsius. But cities are already up to 3 degrees Celsius warmer than natural areas surrounding them, meaning that cities will be up to 7 degrees warmer than historical natural areas. And while UK precipitation is expected to decrease with climate change, Northern England and Scotland are expected to see more frequent and intense rainfall events. Cities are also difficult places for biodiversity. A number of taxa show negative declines with increasing urbanization. So for example, bird species richness, the richness of beetles and butterflies, and mammals with high urbanization. Some groups are less sensitive, for example, spiders and bees, and we often see no change or increases in diversity of plants. This is because of the high degree of non-native species and cultivated species purposely introduced into cities. But if we look at the total number of individuals of plants, we see massive declines with urbanization as more surface area is turned into livable area and impervious surfaces. So cities are facing challenges. Most cities have antiquated infrastructure and rainfall handling systems that are ill-equipped to deal with large and increasing storms. There's often poor air quality driven by nitrogen oxides, and combined with heat, we get ozone. There's a number of health impacts that come along with urbanization. We often see that people are disconnected from nature, leading to other adverse effects. And there's a lack of food sovereignty for people living in cities. They're disconnected from the growth and production of their food and have little control over it. So nature-based solutions can provide cost-effective mitigation measures to many of these adverse effects. And so in cities, we can refer to nature-based solutions as cost-effective infrastructure development and land development that enhances environmental benefits and resilience, and also increases human engagement and ownership over the implementation of these benefits. So now I'll go through some of the adverse effects of urbanization and give some examples of the ways in which nature-based solutions can provide mitigation measures. So I've already mentioned water and flooding is a major problem in many cities. While sustainable drainage systems, SUDs, can reduce flood surges and move water safely and help capture pollutants that are transported by water. Green roofs can intercept and store runoff that can overwhelm traditional drainage systems. Further, restoration of wetlands and meadows and forests can all intercept and store water. So the pictures here are an example of two different ways of moving water through an urban system. We have a traditional system that at the top that can quickly become overwhelmed in a large storm event. And the bottom from Singapore, we see examples of a sustainable drainage system. This is built infrastructure, even though it looks semi-natural, that is designed to store and move water. With the problems of temperature in cities, green spaces can help reduce urban temperature through shading and evapotranspiration. Current green space reduces temperatures in London by about 0.5 degrees Celsius. It's estimated that 20% expansion of green space can reduce by 1/3 the projected temperature increases with climate change in cities. And green roofs, more locally, can significantly reduce building temperature and energy expenditures. Air quality, we know, is low in cities because of nitrogen dioxides and particulate matter production. And these problems are linked to cardiovascular illness and lung cancer. In the UK, this causes up to 40,000 premature deaths a year and 6 million sick days. There's evidence showing that urban trees and other vegetation, which absorbs carbon dioxide, can potentially absorb other pollutants like particulate matter through active uptake and dry deposition. There is known to be a lot of variation among different tree species, and much more research is needed. Nature-based solutions in urban areas can also provide climate change mitigation. So, for example, urban soils represent an important carbon sink if managed correctly. It's been shown that soil ameliorated with construction waste can result in calcite formation, and this can be an important strategy used in less beneficial sites like brownfield sites in cities. Urban trees are a major carbon sink, especially considering that surrounding landscapes often have fewer trees and are converted to agriculture and other habitats. For example, in Leicester, the city of Leicester sequesters 10 times more carbon than equal-sized areas outside of it because of the high degree of tree density. It's estimated that a 10% increase in tree cover would result in a 12% increase in urban carbon storage. NBS can also provide important biodiversity value within cities. So as I said, most taxa show negative declines or negative impacts of urbanization. Some taxa might actually use cities as a refuge. So NBS in cities often result in the creation of habitat, whether that's semi-natural or designed infrastructure, and these can aid in supporting biodiversity. Even degraded and disturbed lands have value, but we need to ensure that brownfield sites and vacant lots are transitioned into healthier habitats that have multiple benefits. Nature-based solutions not only have a number of direct environmental improvements, but they can also improve human well-being. So we know that urbanization has both positive and negative health impacts. Positive impacts being access to services and hospitals and education that can improve people's well-being. But at the same time, there's many negative impacts, including impacts on mental health, like stress, anxiety, loss of connection with nature, and a number of physical health impacts, including respiratory ailments, higher incidence of heart disease, cancer, reduced physical activity. Well, MBS can improve health and well-being. Green space access reduces stress, increases physical activity. The presence of a healthy urban forest reduces the incidence of cardiovascular and pulmonary disease. Access to MBS is often a socio-economic issue, with marginalized communities having less access, therefore often realizing fewer of the health benefits and well-being benefits of green space. And so NBS growth needs to have equity and inclusion as a prime mandate. And there are many examples of this happening now. This is the final slide, just a summary slide trying to pull together all the bits of information that we were able to find. The rows are examples of different types of nature-based solutions that could be used in cities. From restoring habitats to building green infrastructure to gardens and corridors, and then a number of different ecosystem services and benefits. And what you see is there's a lot of heterogeneity. So some of these types of NBS can have very high degrees of benefit for things like carbon sequestration and flood reduction, for example. And for other types of environmental services, other types of NBS. So it's not that there's a single type of solution that fits cities, but it needs to be a heterogeneous pool of resources that are pursued. You can also see I've put on bits of gray just to show that there's a lot of information that's required in order to fully understand and link together how different NBS can provide benefits in urban contexts. And what's really not fully known is the degree of variation that exists. So some of these types of nature-based solutions might be beneficial in some cities in some contexts, but maybe less beneficial in others. So more research is certainly needed. And in ending, I just want to thank the organizers and especially the BES staff that have put in a lot of time and effort into making this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. That was an excellent, lots of examples of how we can improve the places that we live. I think that's really important, the question of equity there as well.